One of the things that Sarah had told me about today that the discussion was relative to meeting schedule, and I wanted to have a general conversation with everybody about the CIC. Sorry, I've got sun coming in the side window there, but I know that attendance a little bit has been hit and miss. Some of that is Zoom issues. Some of it is probably scheduling. Some of it is everybody's getting back up and going. I just wanted to check in just real briefly with everyone, how they think things are going with CIC. Do you want to continue CIC? Do you want to, I mean, I just kind of general 30,000 foot level question, and just kind of touch base with everybody.
Yeah, I think CIC has been a very positive effect on the town with the implementation of the goals of the comprehensive plan. And of course, those goals are changing now that we have a new update. I can't imagine that the town would foresee eliminating the CIC. I just think from my experience with the town, we've gotten a heck of a lot done that the town wasn't able to do on its own, actually.
I think we should ask Gary, what is this helpful to the town board, Gary? That we're kind of an intermediary?
Personally, I think it is. I think it's been, you and I have been both charter members, and as some of the others have of this committee. And, I think it's been very beneficial.
As one of the newer people on the committee, I am amazed at the wealth of information that is disseminated through this committee, and I think it's important to have a focal point for achieving goals that are developed in the master plan and by the town board, et cetera. And I think this committee is it. I think it's really worth the time, and I have no problem with the first and third Tuesdays. I don't think most of the other people do either. So
I agree. I think the first and third Tuesdays seem to be working just fine. And I just have a comment. As a newbie to the board, I was looking at it and going through notes, and it probably takes about a year to really catch up, with things, all the, what am I looking for? The code name of things and the committees. And I think the committees that are formed and the way that they are formed are very powerful. It goes through the whole town. It's just amazing. And driving around the town, looking for signage, I'm on that committee too. It's just so different here. So I definitely would encourage keeping things moving ahead.
I agree with everyone.
My only
Go ahead,
concern
Tom.
is looking at everybody's faces, with the exception of Patty, who's younger than the rest of us. We don't have any youngsters here. They're all old farts, and we should have somehow input from younger people and people that aren't already, I see most people here are either on some major board or committee or whatever. We need some citizen involvement.
Agreed.
And I don't know how we do it. It's the same problem with every committee and board. It's finding somebody that isn't working or got a pile of kids or soccer or baseball or whatever. We saw this with the purchase of the lakefront property. You've got perhaps divisions in the community that shouldn't exist, or lack of information in the community, unfortunately. I don't know how we solve it.
Tom, I agree with you. I agree with you about getting some younger people involved. But also some of the people that are supposed to be on CIC and we haven't seen them in about a year. We probably need to just reach out to them and ask why they no longer are being active. And I don't know, how do we get younger people on board?
I think we have to go back and remember when this committee was developed, that the criteria for being on the CIC was that you either were now on a board or you had previously been on a board. So that in itself is a limiting factor. And then, Sal and Bill Lee came on, and, that kind of broke up that base of what we were expecting for the members of the committee to be. So it's changing. This committee is changing. As a look at the ECB, they've got a 20-year-old in there now on one of their members, and so things are changing. And even in the planning board, Ryan and whatever, they're younger. So what we have to do is just open it up. If this is what the CIC is going to do, open it up to any members of the town, and that would be a good thing. But I also want to state that, this is an oversight board, and it is in, an addition to, or I want to say a helping committee for the town board, and I think that's what our function is. The main purpose of our being here is help the town board to implement all of the goals and everything of all the policies that the town board. So that's how I see us. We're just a helping committee, but we're oversight. We help the town board to gain insight into specific areas that they might not be aware of or have their finger on or whatever,
or have the time to get into like we do.
Yeah, they have a lot.
Yeah.
And then actually, I agree with Joyce and Tom. And you know what? This is the life cycle. You are young, you're raising your kids, you're busy working, you maintain a home, you do sports. You don't have the time to do this. You get to be middle-aged, you might have some time and might want to devote it to that, but you get to be older and some of us are retired. And this is our time to give back, and that doesn't mean we can't take into account the thoughts and feelings and likes and dislikes of younger people. And because we're all on other boards and committees that do have younger people, it's our job to bring those ideas and concerns to the town and this particular committee, and eventually it reaches the town board. I don't see any problem with our makeup. I think the problem is we need to be cognizant of the younger people in our town, and you know what? Talk to them. I go down to Ananda Park, especially in the wintertime, because I was concerned about the people complaining that Ananda Park was underutilized. I talked with many young couples that have their kids sledding on that huge hill there, and it was interesting to hear their concept of what's important in parks and recreation, which is one of the other things that I'm on. So it's just being open to young ideas. And you know what? I still think like a 17-year-old, and I'm not ashamed
That's
of that
dangerous.
sometimes. I know it is. I know it is. The good thing is my body no longer can act like a 17-year-old.
Any other comments?
Well,
Go ahead.
well, Doug, considering the Tishner Point project, do you think there are any people from that project that were either complaining or being in favor that you know of that would be interested in serving on not just CIC, but any other committees? Because I felt like they really didn't know anything what was happening in the town, except what was happening in their backyard.
Yeah, and except what's going to affect their taxes.
Yeah, and that too, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's the reality of our demographic, but it's the reality of how government works. I mean, we have 300 million people in this country, and 150 million of them voted. So I don't see this as being like out of the ordinary. I think this is what we can expect from from people who have other interests beside the town governance. Maybe what we could see is that they have a confidence in the town government, and when they have a question about some part of its operation, like Kitchener Point, then they raise their hands and say, wait a minute, think again or something, and offer their opinions. I don't think this is unusual. I don't think it's anything really to kind of concentrate on. You put it out there, and the people who are interested come. All we have to do is make sure that we put it out there. And I'm talking about the invitations for people to come on board.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I mean, taking that a step further, Joyce, even with the town of Canandaigua, we know that there's approximately, give or take, 12,000 people. We'll see what the actual census numbers come out, but we know that there's about 12,000 people in the town of Canandaigua. Fewer than 30% of them actually vote to elect their actual representatives to actually decide who's going to represent them. And then I would also take that a step further in that the town board and the elected officials are actually elected and actually charged with actually running and making the policy decisions. And then that's something that they need to do. Sometimes they probably need additional information, and I think that that's where the CIC can be very helpful. I think there is a desperate need for some strategic planning and some joint meetings with the boards. I think we've got some over the last year and a half with COVID, we've got a new member that hasn't really experienced a normal year because of the COVID over the last year and a half. And so I think there's some desperate need for some training, for some strategic planning, for some joint meetings of the boards for people to share information. But I think that maybe the CIC could also be helpful in addition to being involved in some of that. Maybe the CIC could reach out, whether it's surveys or whether it's other things, to engage some of the public. What I've seen over the last couple of months relative to the whole Tishner Point thing and everything else, we'll have, for instance, we have 10 people on this call this morning, but yet when we post this thing, it'll be viewed 500-600 times. So people aren't necessarily able to participate right now at this specific time, but we need to provide opportunities for people to be interactive with us on their schedule, whenever that schedule is, if it's 2 a.m. or whether it's 2 p.m. And so that's some of the challenges that it's not just us, but a lot of governments are trying to figure out and how to do that. So. All right, well, I wasn't suggesting that we were getting rid of the CIC or anything at all like that, but I wanted to just check in with you all and touch base, and I'm happy to hear that. I think the CIC is an amazing group that has provided a lot of horsepower to get things done. Look at all the planning documents that we've done over the years, the
Absolutely.
NRI, all that stuff. That, even the comprehensive plan, all the goals of the comprehensive plan that have actually been implemented. That and a lot of times, a lot of municipalities sits and collects stuff. So I think it's a great suggestion to reach out to the non-active members, and then maybe there needs to be some discussion about how we do involve more people, whether it's actually part of the meeting or maybe there's some other forum that could be used to involve the public, or at certain times of the year to involve the public a little bit more conveniently. But those are definitely things that we can work on.
Well, we could also identify what strengths we could possibly need on the CIC, and then maybe invite citizens. I mean, particular citizens who have the skills that might, prove, might be helpful to the CIC. I don't think in the beginning, that's what we did. Okay, we sent out invitations, to people who we thought would be, and we appointed them to the board. So we could do that again.
Sure. Well, and to your point, Oksana, that you were asking about in terms of the people responding to us relative to the proposed Tishner Point acquisition, that, we were seeing basically 2-to-1 folks in favor of that versus opposed to it. But the questions that I was answering over and over and over from both sides was relative to basic things that people,
Mhm.
you know, they were in the things that are communicated, whether it's through the newsletter or whether it's through this, that, or the other thing, and people just don't read it or they don't take the time to understand until, you're exactly right, Tom, it affects their pocketbook.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's some of the ongoing challenges. What for the rest of it, here, let me share my screen for a second. Sarah had provided me sure. Sarah had provided me with this list of kind of the meeting schedule for 2021. I wanted to touch base with you all on this. And yes, it's April. We just finished the first quarter, but as we look to the rest of the year, what is it that the CIC would like to accomplish for the rest of 2021? Obviously, I think one of the big things is, an easy one is, we need to get the comprehensive plan adopted. I think that really should be one of our priorities in making sure that we finish that process up and get that to the town board so that they can adopt that. But what are some other things that you would like to see us try to accomplish in 2021 before we start talking about going forward?
Doug, I think one of the things that we should really try to at least put a dent in is the affordable housing movement, because I can see that as being significantly long-term, but
Yeah.
at least do something to start the activity and start an interest in it, and plan on how we're going to accomplish it.
And I think there's a project team meeting coming up, a kickoff
Yes, there
meeting
is.
coming up.
There
and-
is, yeah.
Yeah.
There is,
Right.
yeah.
The 28th, I think.
And that has all kinds of different aspects. You're absolutely right, Karen. I think that's going to take some time to get into, because the first thing you're going to have to do is everybody's going to have a different definition of affordable housing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
what is the town willing or able to do to influence affordable housing once you define what it is? Is the town willing to invest financial, or is it just willing to do regulatory? So there's a variety of factors that have to be figured out, and that's going to take some time probably to go through that. And then, does it need to be part of a larger movement for the region? But it sounds to me like, in terms of that project team, there's a lot of interested entities, including Habitat for Humanity, that sounds like it's going to be involved with that project team, and Pat Stone, and a variety of others that are very accustomed to working on affordable housing projects. So I think that they're going to be involved in, there might be some opportunities to think outside the box with that too. So.
Doug, I had a question on the comp plan. The current comp plan, the one that we're revising, has that sort of been tied up and bundled, and everything sort of the bow put on it as far as it being completed, or any remaining items on that plan? Has that been rolled into the new plan?
I am glad you asked that question, Chuck. Great question. So,
Well,
Chuck,
seemed like a logical question.
Let me make sure I understand your question. Are you talking about the 2011 plan or the 2021 plan?
Yeah, the one that this committee's been working so hard to implement over the last couple of years. Yeah.
Okay, so the 2011 plan, rolling that into the 2021 plan, the new plan.
Either finish what has to be finished on that, or whatever
Yeah.
isn't finished, roll it into the 2021.
Right.
Yeah, so I think what we said is we implemented, there were 20 goals originally. I believe we've implemented somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15. There are some that are out there that I know have been reflected in the 2021 version, like, for instance, affordable housing. That's a great example of one.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some others that those items that have still need to be achieved have been rolled over into the new plan. The old plan doesn't go away, obviously. And it's just like, periodically, I know I go back and reference the 2003 comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
So So it's always there, and some of the plans are more focused on details relative to certain topics than others. I think the 2003 plan had a lot more information, for instance, about mixed use overlays in it than the 2011 plan did. So it's still there, but I believe that the majority of the items, the bigger goals that were left to still be accomplished have been incorporated, I believe, in the 2021. But it's a great question. We need to go back and double check that.
Actually, Doug, that is what we looked at when we were working on the new plan, and there were things that had been completed. We looked at the things that still needed to be done, for example, affordable housing, but then for example, the Uptown study that created some new issues, so we took a look at those issues, and we also took a look at the way technology has changed and has changed the future of any community, and based on those changes, we took a look at how infrastructure needed to be updated to accommodate technology changes in likes and dislikes, changes in the demographics. So it was a mix. We based it on the original plan, and in some respects went back to 2002, but everything has moved forward, and we tried to continue that movement forward. And I think we succeeded in most places. You might find a few places where that wasn't possible, or that somebody dug their heels in or something, but I think we accomplished that.
Good. I just want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks, and it sounds like it was
Yeah.
pretty well covered, and anything that maybe wouldn't apply moving forward has sort of been, I guess, reconsidered in the new plan draft. But certainly, once we adopt a new plan, then that'll be a charge of this committee, I guess, to implement that, and which is certainly, as Doug said, a big item on this schedule.
Yeah.
Karen, I know you and Oksana and Joyce and some others have been working on some of the editing of that. Can you just touch base and kind of give us an update for everybody on that too?
Well, the editing I did, and Oksana, was primarily a grammar, punctuation, spelling, etc. And I believe that Joyce looked at content. But you can't do both at the same time, and it was a 130-page document. So I have passed on. I took Oksana's changes and I incorporated them in the copy I had, and I've given that to Sarah with an outline of how to go through and make those changes. And I met with her prior to her going on vacation, so I'm sure she'll be hard at work at doing that once she gets back. But I don't know what Joyce came up with on the things that she was doing.
I looked through it. I wasn't really into, so long as something was there, the way it was worded, I didn't have any real objections to, the narrative as it was written. I was looking mainly that the sections were there that we had talked about and how they were amplified. And I really didn't see anything that really needs some drastic change. Sure, there's little things here and there that I said, well, maybe this, but it was my preference. So, but I felt that the narrative was basically pretty well done. I'm sure someone would have other comments about that, but that was basically mine.
So I edited it, and I also had some questions on different things. And so I dropped it off to Karen, and she did her job. And now Sarah has my copy with my questions and comments on some of the pages.
And that's what I did. I took the pages that Oksana had questions on and concerns on. I actually took those pages and incorporated them in one document. All of the grammar and punctuation errors, I just copied over into my document. So Sarah has all of that information, and there were some things that it was funny because I too had questions about some things that weren't very clear. And there were a couple of things that were, in my opinion, wrong. But it's all been passed on to Sarah.
Okay.
And I think Sarah has scheduled our meeting 2 weeks from today as being comp plan overdue. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess she will roll in those comments you have, Karen and Joyce and Oksana, and put them in a second draft or third draft, whatever edition we're at, and get it out before the next meeting. That'd be good.
I'd like to see what, Doug, what you have reviewed and how you've edited the document. The last time we reviewed the document long time ago, before you had your comments in there, it was, we had to go back, we put our comments in and then we got yours, and it was just a little time consuming to go back and to see where, and what you thought of that. So if we could have those comments kind of included too, that would be very helpful, before we actually look at the final last draft.
And I haven't done any additional review or anything yet. So no, I completely understand that. I think I'm hopeful that it's getting close, that we can move it forward and kind of continue it along its merry way. I know it's been a lot of work for a lot of people for quite a long time. I believe that Eric has really concluded his work with us at this point. So I think it's back to us at this point to just finish it up and get it adopted so that we can start looking forward towards implementation of it.
Yeah.
Additionally, what we have coming up that's relatively related, and I know that you mentioned it, we've got the Uptown form-based code.
Yes. Where does that stand,
Well,
Doug?
so,
Because, the committee, we did all our edits and comments and all of that, and now we're just waiting for you and Sarah, I guess.
yes. I believe just one of my note here on the comprehensive plan is the plan, I believe, if this still, I'm just going to write it on here so everybody can see it. So the 420, this would be the CIC meeting to review. Whoops, CIC review. And then it would go to the town board for 5/17 to set the public hearing for June. So then hopefully in June, the town board would adopt it. More or less. So, okay. In terms of the form-based code, so I know they have, Bergman at this point is really kind of finished it up in terms of their process. I believe at this point, we need to go through and do edits. I think, though, Sarah and I had a meeting with Bergman. I believe a lot of our comments, Bergman actually did, so they're reflected in this actual draft. So I think that I want to go through it one more time, but I think it's really ready to go forward. So Gary, I know we talked about this briefly at the ordinance committee. We've got to figure out a process on how we're going to go through that with the ordinance committee. Do you have any suggestions on that?
No, I was going to probably meet with you and find out, what the thought process was, and then, bring it before the committee.
I think one of the challenges is this is going to be a new concept for not only the ordinance committee, but also some of the town board members, because they haven't been involved. For instance, like Gary's been involved, so he understands a little bit more. Some of the members have had little to no involvement at all with this form-based code. And so I think it's going to be a whole new concept that truthfully, it's probably going to take more than a meeting for them to understand and kind of move forward with. So I'm a little bit concerned about that as we move forward with the form-based code. And I think even with the ordinance committee really gets into the details, as they should, relative to the laws and the zoning laws specifically. And some of this really kind of turns it on its head. I'm wondering, Gary, and I know you and I were going to try to chat about that, but I wonder if there shouldn't be some sort of maybe we invite the CIC members, anyone that can tend to the ordinance committee to help us go through the process, or maybe we hold some special meet. I'm not 100% sure of the best way to go about it, to be honest with you, because I know that there's going to be questions. So I'm open to suggestions if anybody has them.
Well, does Bergman, do they still have any time on this project to do a presentation to the town board and the ordinance committee?
I believe that we could probably get them to do it. I think they probably have concluded a lot of the work, but we're in a different situation than we are with, for instance, the Middle Cheshire Road thing. That one is like done. They didn't have any more time involved with this. With the form-based code, the town had hired Bergman to do this, so we're in a little different position. So I think we could probably get them to do that, and we also have money budgeted for 21 to start the next phase. So we could certainly talk to them about doing something like that. I'm sure that they would entertain something, even if they charged us for that. I think the last time we had a joint big meeting was prior to COVID at the school bus garage. And I think that
Yeah.
was the very last time that we had, I don't even think we had all board members at that meeting, but I think we had most of them. And I don't know that there's been any real involvement since that time. So, you know, again, and Gary, jump in here, but if you have any suggestions, I just don't know how to update everybody on this. And maybe I'm overly concerned for nothing. I don't know, but we'll see. I just think that there's going to be questions about it.
Well, like Oksana said, it'd be probably ideal to have Bergman come in and make a presentation to, the board, the town board, as well as, the CIC and the ordinance committee, and anybody else that want to attend a meeting such as that, to get an idea to begin with, so we could start moving forward with that.
Would it be, would the CIC agree to requesting a joint meeting of maybe the town board and any of the ordinance committee members that want to attend, that we could ask them to do all that at once and then record it, and maybe those that can't attend could watch it?
Sure, and offer
And Doug?
incidents also.
Oh, go ahead.
That sounds good.
Doug, you mentioned
Yeah.
something about the next phase. What do you think that might look like? This phase, I assume, ends at the implementation. Is that right? When the board finally approves the form-based code for Uptown. And then the next phase is what? Once you've adopted this plan, is this where now then the ordinance committee has to take up and redo the code? Is that what the next phase is, or?
No, so the first phase is really that section that is closest to what I would call 332.
Okay.
Remember, they had established sub areas. I can pull
Yeah.
that one up.
Yeah.
It's like, but they had established those sub areas, right? And remember, when we were talking about form-based code and even the mixes of different uses, there were different sections that really were relative to different things. And so this first phase was really just that area, what I would call the inner portions of the form-based code relative to 332. This document basically, what I believe is the case, and Bergman can certainly update us, but once the town board adopts this document, there's the regulations that are also adopted, and it's a separate section of the town code that then goes into the town code.
Oh, okay.
And then regulates that area. So that's all, that portion is included in the first phase. The next phase would be the area just outside of that innermost closest to 332 section.
So you're saying that the next phase would be implementing the code into those other sections. So we would approve the code and approve the code changes in this adoption of this, and then we would move out to the outer sections and do the whole process again, but with some basic formula here that we would use.
Yeah, so they actually have formula, like, so for instance, the remember when we did the map, it included the area over next to the airport, and it included the area
Yeah.
then going back up around like where the driving range is and
Yeah.
coming.
Mm.
So the first section is, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the form-based code is this area in red.
Yeah, it's the 332 area.
So see, we still have to go do the other areas. Now, the
Yeah,
right.
regulation. Go
It
ahead.
sounds like another whole project, and it sounds like that would be important for a consultant to work with us with, because that's,
Well-
part
Well,
of that town.
They are.
Oh, they
they
are.
are, Joyce.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, good. All right. I was thinking we were kind of on our own once
No.
we
No.
adopted this plan. All right. So, but
When we originally hired Bergman for that, it was prior to COVID, and we said, okay, come in and do all of this. But then when COVID hit, we had to scale it back, and it's like, okay,
I
what
got
do
you.
we do in phase one, just because unknown with the fiscal situation. And so that's really what we focused on for the first phase, and we really even scaled that back. And then looking ahead to the next phase would be those outer sections that we're talking about. But no,
Okay.
they're going to be involved with that.
Okay, good. Relieved. I thought, oh God, another committee.
But that to your point though, Joyce, it's likely a multi-year process because you've got a whole nother section that's got to be
Absolutely.
done.
I think I was thinking along the lines of the affordable housing and how affordable housing would fit into the uptown area, because of course it would be a really nice area there to incorporate something like that. So that was mainly my thinking. How is the affordable stuff? But we've got time to figure that out, which is good.
And, the meeting that we had at the bus garage, we had quite a few developers and business owners there. So that was like our initial explanation to them. If and when we have the meeting with Bergman for the town board and CIC and ordinance, should we invite those people back so they can see what the final data is on the form-based code, or is it too soon yet?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea because then even the town board members can see the input directly from.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because they were really in favor. They were very positive during that meeting.
Yeah.
And Oksana, didn't we invite the Economic Development Committee to that?
Yes.
Great idea. Okay. So then the form-based code, that would also, so I for 2021 goals, I've got obviously adoption of the comprehensive plan, affordable housing, form-based codes.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That really is still a lot when you're talking about 3/4. There's a variety of other things that are also on this list. I know that Sal, you mentioned the gateway signage, and I know Oksana, you've been very interested in that. Is there anything we just want to touch base on relative to that?
Well, according to Sarah, she sent an email to the previous gateway sign project team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she only heard from Sal and Joyce and myself. So I don't know what happened to the other people. So we haven't set up any meeting or anything.
Well, maybe a way to work into that would also be the ordinance committee is going to be relatively quickly considering some change in our legislation relative to billboards. And I know we had talked about this previously with advertising for billboards. That's coming back around, and there is an opportunity to work on a joint gateway sign for Uptown with Lamar as we look at that. So maybe that's a good place to start before we get into some of the details of all of the other roads and everything, since that one is what I would say imminent. It's got to come. There was a lawsuit involving that. That's certainly looking to move forward. So I don't really have a timeline other than I've had some conversations with Lamar Advertising. They own the 4 billboards that are in the town of Canandaigua. Those are the only 4 billboards in the town of Canandaigua. Part of the agreement would be that they would be converting the 4 billboards, 2 of the 4 to digital, with the placement of 1 on 332, 1 on 5 and 20, and the elimination of 2 of the signs. As we look at that, and specifically that sign on 332, that's where right in front of the driving range. It's right in that area there where it currently is. They're very interested in working with us on what we could call a larger gateway sign, even though that's in the town of Canandaigua already at that point. A lot of times you really feel like at that point, that's when you get into the commercial section, and then you get into the city of Canandaigua, obviously, and everything else. So it's certainly something that we could look at. We could look at the smaller gateway signs actually at the town entrances, maybe separately after we get through that process. But those billboards, that's something that we've got to do relatively quickly. So.
Well, Doug, I have to tell you, we only had 2 meetings for the committee, and nobody on the committee was in favor of the digital boards. Yeah. It just didn't seem to comport with our rural character and all of that. So, and we really, I don't think the CIC, have we ever discussed that?
Yes, we did.
I don't think we have.
I don't think so either. I think if we look at code, what we have now anyway, it's going to say nothing flashing, all of that kind of thing. So I think that there's some research into flashing signs and how they disrupt focus from driving, attention to driving. I'm not quite so sure that, digital signage is desirable.
So I don't really want to get into the policy, and I'm going to be careful here because that's obviously the town board decision, and there's a lawsuit involving this. But these are not the flashing red lights that you would talk about. And we did discuss this at the CIC, and then it's been discussed multiple times at the town board level. These are video displays. These are extremely large TV screens that are designed to rotate. I don't remember. Gary, do you remember? Is it 8 seconds, 10 seconds? I don't know, but it's specifically designed so that a car would only see one display, and then it would change, and the next car may see, or 2 cars later, 3 cars later, whatever it is, may see the next one. So they have a ton. I mean, Lamar's a international advertising.
Yeah.
And everything. So they've done those displays. Yeah, go ahead.
So Doug, would it be like the new sign at the ice rink?
No, that's what I would call a digital. These are more like giant TV screens. This is a giant. It looks identical to the billboard that's currently there, except for it's a screen where the ad would actually change. You wouldn't actually, driving by it, you probably wouldn't know that it was a billboard or a video screen.
So would it be shown on both sides? On both sides or just one? Oh, yeah. Okay, so people going in both directions would see it.
Yes.
Okay.
And the opportunity here also is they're willing to work with us in terms of, let me stop sharing my screen for a second and this probably is a more in-depth separate meeting that we'll need to have. I'm trying to schedule something relative to that, but there's an opportunity here because they're willing to actually design, how when we were talking about the signage regulations, the aesthetic appearance of the sign being almost more like larger columns with stone and that sort of thing, you know, how we kind of talk,
Yeah.
they're actually willing to do all that. And that the billboard portion would be insert in that. And then they would also provide community advertising relative to community events and stuff associated with this that would be part of the whole agreement that would flip over. So to make a very, very long story short, the town about 10, 12 years ago, I think it was 12 years ago, the town passed legislation and actually it put into our town code that said that billboards were not legal in the town of Canandaigua. Well, there's a federal law that basically prohibits the amortization process that the town board used at the time, and it's not legal. And so the law was overturned in court. So we've got to, we have to actually update the regulations and get that fixed because otherwise I think it's going to really make us wide open to all kinds of craziness. So as part of all of that, we've really got to move this forward and get this done.
So whoever is still going to be on the signage committee, would we meet with Lamar or just you and the town board?
I think at some point in time, yes, down the road, we'd meet with Lamar and we'll have some general conversations. Right now, this is litigation. So right now we're working with the attorneys and the chief executive officer of Lamar. But as that process moves forward, yes, there will definitely be an opportunity. And I think that it would be great to have the signage team involved in that to provide some input so that we can get something out of this that is beneficial for our community.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
And I think if knowing these parameters, some of those previous signage committee members might be encouraged to, return to the committee, knowing that there is really a project already kind of in the works here. I mean, we were starting at the bare nothing the last time, but that's not so now. So maybe we need to explain to those previous committee members that there is an opportunity here for us to have input because this is in the works.
Is that something Sarah could send out again?
Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
With some explanation of, what our immediate goals might be.
Yeah. So we're working on setting up a meeting right now because one of the things that I was talking with the Lamar folks, this was really, everything was moving forward just prior to COVID. I mean, literally it was like March of 20, I think, and everything came to a grinding halt, right? So I just said to them, I asked for a meeting that we could all do a refresher and kind of get back up to speed on where everything's at and everything. So we've got a couple of things on the legal side that we've got to take care of because of what the judge had said to us. And then we can get more into the public discussions relative to this. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
And then the ordinance committee also knows that that's coming, Gary, right? So we could even invite the ordinance committee members to the same meeting or again, record it. That's one of the benefits of Zoom and be able to view that later.
Right, because we had them on the schedule to, for the ordinance committee for this last meeting and the one previous to that, but we held off on it due to the fact that it's in litigation.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now for 21, comp plan, affordable housing, form-based code, and we've got this signage issue. I think that's probably enough for 21.
Oh my God, yeah.
Well,
but the other thing
Doug,
that's going on is the conservation. I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, one other thing that I think we should take a look at is in the infrastructure section. If there becomes money available for infrastructure, it would behoove us to take advantage of that if it's set up for us to do that. But I'm thinking in particular of high-speed internet. And that's going to be critical for the uptown study to really be a dynamic event to have that available. And it's also critical throughout our town. I mean, if we're going to move forward, it is absolutely critical that we have high-speed internet, and that it's been slowed down for some reason. But I think because we did put infrastructure changes into this master plan, at the very least, we could start, it's like the affordable housing. We need to make a dent in that particular area.
And I think, Karen, when you bring up the infrastructure project, that's probably going to, be some part of it anyway. I think that's Middle Cheshire. Then that active transportation project plan would fit in well with that too.
Yes, but when you think about Middle Cheshire, it has probably the densest population in the town, from what I can see, and there is no high-speed internet on Middle Cheshire Road available. So,
oh, really? Wow.
Yep.
Well, there you go.
There you go. So, along with that study, at any rate, we need to take a look at the town as a whole, particularly where we are looking to make changes in a code or design or mixed-use overlays, etc., and determine how we're going to go about making this particular infrastructure change.
Well, according to Biden, there's going to be lots of money
That's why I bring it
for
up. That's why I bring it up.
infrastructure. Right. Yeah. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but that would be great.
And when's it going to trickle down? Doug, I've got a suggestion, just an editorial thing. Under topics in spring, we talk about TDR and CE project team. It's really a conservation subdivision project team, not a conservation
Easement.
Do you see where I mean? Up one.
Yep.
It says, we're really talking about conservation subdivision, revising the rules on that.
Well, and so I believe we have an update right from Barb Johnson that just went out. I haven't had a chance to go through it. We need to look at that. The other thing that, I'm hoping that that team would also, I mentioned this the other day, we had a conversation a couple of years ago now about really trying to put some teeth into the strategic farmland protection area and the strategic forest protection area. And we haven't done that yet either. So I don't know if that's something that maybe a next phase, but we've got to get I think the conservation subdivision probably needs to be a priority, knowing some of the projects that are possibly in the pipeline coming. So.
And I don't know what you're going to talk about when you talk about TDR, because we've talked about it so often. But anyway, at the end of the summer on this topics agenda, there is conservation easements, TDR, and PDR. I don't think we'll have any more information on TDRs. I'm not, unless something's in the works here and I'm not familiar with it. So for the spring, I think definitely we want to talk about conservation subdivision and how that's moving along. But TDRs, I don't know. We've been talking about them forever. I think we've got to get our act together under conservation easement topic and then start talking about that.
Correct.
So eliminating it in the spring, I think we have enough, just gives us order to bring that together.
And there are two.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say with conservation subdivisions, there are two issues really. There's the actual process that the conservation subdivision goes through. And then as part of that, usually there is a conservation easement created. And there's a question, there has been a question, and it continues to be a question, is who and how those easements be maintained. And so it's really two different issues. How do you create the conservation subdivision, and who maintains the easements that are generated from it?
Yeah, so that conversation came up with the New York State Department of Ag and Markets. And I guess, and it's an opinion on my part, but and maybe we need to formalize this. I believe that when the town went down the road of PDRs, that the town decided it was going to hold conservation easements. So the PDR requires the town of Canandaigua to actually hold the conservation easement if we are the one, and to maintain the conservation and defend the conservation easement if we are the one that has been awarded the PDR and we are the one that's approved it. So that's a requirement from the New York State Department of Ag and Markets. So we have multiple conservation easements in the town of Canandaigua currently that are held by, as a joint collaboration with Finger Lakes Land Trust and the town of Canandaigua, where Finger Lakes Land Trust will do the monitoring and the enforcement because they were awarded when they actually ended up being the one that submitted. But really this most recent one with the Purdy Farm off of Emerson, well, north of Emerson, Sand Hill Road, that was actually awarded to the town of Canandaigua. So the town of Canandaigua will actually be the one responsible for holding the easement and enforcing it. So, at some point in time, as we get into looking at these other conservation easements when it comes to conservation subdivision, I know that those were very loosely done in the past, but that's to your point, Chuck. I think we probably need some sort of a policy or something to really designate how we're going to go about that.
Yeah.
Great.
So Doug, I hate to bring this up. What about Cheshire?
Well, so that's a great question.
What do you want about Cheshire? Sidewalk,
Well,
sewer?
I mean, we talked last year about doing a new Cheshire master plan. And we haven't done anything with the one that was established in 2003.
I think
So
we
I'm
changed.
just,
You mean updated? Is that what you
yeah,
mean?
well, yes, we need to update it. But I mean, if we don't get sewer, then I don't see how, we can progress in anything in Cheshire.
I believe we changed zoning in Cheshire to make it more amenable to mixed uses and denser use of the lots. But again, you can't solve density if you don't have sewers.
Yeah.
And if
So-
the inhabitants don't want to pay for it, I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah.
So with this new infrastructure $1 trillion bill that's supposed to go through Congress, maybe, hey, sewers come under that.
Good luck.
So Doug, what about the Naples sewer project? How were they able to afford to get that done? Was it strictly by grants? And it was some kind of new innovative system.
Yeah.
I mean, could we do something like that in Cheshire?
So, there's a little bit of apples and oranges there. I get where you're going with it, and you're just kind of trying to look under every rock. I understand that. So the Naples thing, that was really more towards water quality for the protection of Canandaigua Lake. And they were actually able to get some grant money associated with that because of the tributary that was there and it was on the DEC list and it was tested. And they were able to get grant money to actually put in that sanitary sewer system as well as the treatment facility. New, innovative, yes, yes, yes. Cheshire, everything that I understand, and we've looked at this, we looked at this when we were talking to the residents of the hamlet of Cheshire. I know Terry has brought it up multiple times with the Planning Public Works Committee. The tributary that goes through Cheshire does not test at a level of nitrates and types of things coming into Canandaigua Lake to rank it even high enough for it to qualify for any grant money associated with that. And Gary, can I put you on the spot here for a minute? I guess my question would be, do you believe that there's an appetite for the town board on even spending any money at this point in the hamlet of Cheshire for sewer? I kind of get the impression the team that the Planning Public Works Committee, and Terry's not here, and we could certainly have a follow-up discussion about this, but I kind of get the impression that they've moved on to some of the other priority areas.
I believe they have, due to the fact that we had them different meetings with the people in Cheshire, and you know, like you said, they certainly were not for it, which is understandable because the cost factor that was going to be a burden for them. And so they moved on to Grandview, found out the same situation there. Now they're looking at County Road 28 to, you know, do a survey there and find out, you know, the cost
God.
factor on that.
That's not fair. I mean, County Road 20, no, I'm serious. County Road 28. I mean, excuse me, I'm having a problem here with my throat. Cheshire really does need sewer. I mean, desperate. So County Road 28, are you kidding? I mean, they can wait. That has not been a priority with the sewer master plan.
Well, it was
So-
one of the top three.
No, Oksana, it was. Those are the three that they listed when I was on the sewer plan, and it was adopted by the town board. There was those three areas with
Yeah.
Cheshire naturally being number one.
But is there the density on County Road 28 that they really need sewer? Right
They're
now?
doing a study now, and I guess in the past, I didn't have anybody approach me on it, you know, but I guess in the past, when you know, Pam was supervisor, when they went knocking on doors, that you know, quite a few of the residents out there were it was a priority for them. And I understand Cheshire
still.
because, you know, when I got involved with the town back in the late 70s, early 80s, you know, it was a problem in Cheshire then, you know, where they had a couple of systems that had breakouts, and this is something that's been ongoing, unfortunately, for that number of years, and it still hasn't been resolved.
When I first moved to Canandaigua in 1972, I lived on County Road 28, and we owned the property that we lived on. And yes, there were problems then with sewers. And I can remember talking to whoever was, I mean, that was a long time ago. And well, there's no chance of that ever happening out here. But in fact, there is a population certainly on County Road 28 up to the where Jimmy Fletcher lives, whatever that road is. And there have been problems since 1972 with septic systems on that road. And in fact, there is a trailer park there too that I can't imagine it not having a problem. But since I live now, and then of course, Gary and I both remember Laura Lane having a concentration of people living here, and them actually stopping the building on Laura Lane because of septic problems. So, you know, there are these little pockets throughout the community that have issues and have not been settled. I'm just wondering when grant money is available, if the same thing could happen for the County Road 28 and the Cheshire community, because clearly Cheshire has problems. And I know from personal experience, County Road 28 does. So.
Yeah, when the sewer master plan was done, it actually went through and actually identified the age ranges of all the different systems. And that's why it actually ranked those three areas as the three top priorities. And Grandview, there's certainly the same issue over at Grandview. And County Road 28 has a lot of older systems and everything there. So that's why they came up with it. You know, with grant money, maybe something will change with the federal government. And as Tom said, maybe it'll trickle down to us. And you know, we have those three areas already identified, but clearly we had a meeting and we spent a lot of time. We invested
Yeah.
20, 30, $40,000 or something or other, even re-looking at the hamlet of Cheshire and sewer,
Mm.
but the residents said they can't afford the debt service payment on it. So it almost is a no, truthfully, at this point, unless some other factor factors in, whether it's grant money or something.
Or,
Yeah, because
or further education that the community is, that sewers are not going to be free. They're going to have to step up to the plate and shoulder part of the burden. And it's an education process.
And that's been going on for ever since we wrote the master plan, the Hamlet master plan in 2004, whenever we did. I don't think it's a case of the residents of Cheshire not knowing the issues. I think that they've just decided that they can't afford it, and nothing's changed there in the economics of the residents of that. But on page 21 of the new update, it talks specifically about the hamlet of Cheshire and all the things that we've wanted to see, like the update of the master plan and the explore creation of historical districts, grant initiatives, all this. It's all there. So when the CIC gets down to its own implementation of these new goals, we'll be able to actually, it's all right there. It's already, been written out for us.
But it doesn't happen without the community embracing it and recognizing they've got to pitch in as well, money-wise.
Yeah, I think that I they know that actually. But anyway, I'm just saying for the CIC and our planning and implementing of the goals of the new 2020 master plan, it's all there. It's all on page 121.
We haven't forgotten it.
Yeah, no, we have not forgotten it.
So Tom, it's not that they don't want it. They are at, most of them at a poverty level that,
Exactly.
Other areas in the town are not. And without sewer, we cannot, progress with any kind of economic development there. And there are potentials to do that. Even affordable housing. How perfect.
I don't know how we solve the problem.
Yeah. At this point.
Well, we did the income survey. We did all that stuff. We factored all of that in, and still the residents said that it was more than what they were willing to spend on the debt service payment. They didn't support it. So I think it would be very hard for the town board to move forward when the residents are saying it's more than they can afford. I don't think they'll create that special district. The other, I go back to, and we're over an hour now, so I want to end this, but I go back to, at the beginning of this, I said, I made a comment about strategic planning, and I want to point out something to you guys. We talked about a lot of great things for 21. We talked about some additional things. The same thing that we just talked about, all these different things, and there's no way we're going to be able to achieve all these different things. The same thing is happening, and I'm seeing it happen at the town board level, where something comes along and it'll be like, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, let's do this, this. When you do that, you don't get anything done. Nothing happens at all. And this is where I need help from you all. We've got, get through this year. Let's get as much done as we can. We're going to have an election coming up in November. We're going to have a new town board seated in January. We need to hit the ground running in January with a strategic planning session that we get all of our groups together and we say, okay, here are the things that we're going to do this year. And maybe we can even do it as we get a little closer to the fall, as some of the political stuff shakes out. Maybe we can get there, started a jump start in 21. But I'm really concerned without getting everybody in the same room together, or by Zoom or whatever the case, but metaphorically speaking, unless we coalesce around some common ideas, we're going to continue to have this and we're not going to accomplish anything.
Well, I'm all for that. Let's do it.
So,
we are now working on the goals that the board approved for the CIC back in December. So that's what we're concentrating on 2021. That's my belief anyway.
I think you're right, Joyce, but let me take that a step further. Part of this needs to be the education of the town board members. and
Sure.
as part of this. And so even with new members coming on, and that's where I'm really concerned. I want to get everybody together so that the town board members also understand that these are the priorities that the community is saying, whether it's the CIC as a community, whether it's all of our boards together as a community, or whether we do some sort of a survey, or whether we just use the goals of the comprehensive plan. We need to push everything in the middle of the table and pick out the top 3 to 5 items that we're going to concentrate on to get done.
So Doug, my experience with strategic planning is that it works well if you have a leader that is experienced in actually doing strategic planning and can familiarize themselves with the goals, because we have many goals, you're right, within the town. Are you saying that there is somebody that could come in, because preferably it would be an outsider that would work with perhaps you and a town board member who is willing to devote the time to it? And is that what you're looking to do?
Well, I think that really we would involve, yes, we could bring somebody in from the outside. That's not a problem, and very affordable. I mean, I've actually done strategic planning with other municipalities for exactly the reason that you just said, Karen. Sometimes it's beneficial when it's somebody from the outside. So there's other managers that could come in and help do that for little to nothing, or even like, for instance, Matt Horn, that we all know. He's very experienced at that too. We could do that. But what I'm suggesting is that we get all 5 town board members, all the CIC, maybe the planning board, zoning board, the ECB, get everybody involved in this strategic planning session, and then come up with, here's the things that we want to accomplish. Here's our priorities.
I would agree with
Matt,
that. Yep.
Yeah. And Matt is very familiar with our comprehensive plan. He's been online when we had our meetings, CIC meetings, discussing the plan. So.
Yep. Okay. Well, I wanted to plant that thought with you because I think it's desperately needed, and we could maybe look at later this year or early next year. But especially, let's face it, we're going to have at least a couple of new faces, probably with the town. Well, at least we will have at least 2 new faces, right? I think if I did that right with the town board, I think it's good to get everybody engaged and involved so that they understand and can coalesce around the priorities and the things that we're working on, so that we don't run into a situation where we're plugging away, working on something or other, and we advance it to the town board, and then the town board's like, where'd that come from? So.
Yep.
Yeah, but you know what? The CIC is only working from a document or documents that the town board has approved of. It is responsibility of the town board members to know what in the heck they're doing, and what these policy entail. The CIC or any other ECB, anybody, we don't do anything until the town board approves the policy and approves the goals. So, I agree that everything is education, but really, where's the town board? It has the responsibility to know what in the heck it's approving. Why are we stepping back and assuming that they don't know?
Joyce, you're preaching to the choir a little bit, but also let me defend the town board here a minute, because some of the town board members are not familiar with the plans because they simply weren't here when those plans were adopted. You take the agriculture enhancement plan or the sewer master plan, which we're still working off of, and those were adopted in 2016, December of 2016. You've got, 2 or 3 members of the town board now that they weren't around at that point in time. So I just recently ran into conversations with them where they were talking about moving forward in one direction that was, I felt, contrary to those adopted plans. And I don't even think they realized that information was there. So there is a little bit of education relative to that. And I'm not saying it's, not anybody's fault. It is what it is. But the CIC is the entity, I feel like, that can also help to bring them along the journey and help them understand, because the CIC members have invested so much time in getting those documents to where they are now.
But
Yeah.
Doug, aren't they accountable? Whoever is running for town board, supervisor, whatever, they have to know all these plans in
Mhm.
order to run the town. I mean, they have
Shouldn't.
to be accountable to it. I mean, it's not just, coming to town hall and just doing, the finances and looking over what's on the agenda for the town board. No, they need to know every plan that we have. So
That's very
there.
idealistic, Oksana, very
I know.
idealistic. And I've been going to town boards way back when you were on the town board, and it works for some town board members, but honestly, in my opinion, it does not work for all town board members, and it does not work for all town supervisors. So I think if you can put together a strategic plan that is an outline, hopefully less than one page, and focus points and how to expand when you go in there. I think I support Doug fully on that, and I think that it would be helpful to us, and that's part of the education process for town board members, I think. So,
Well, and to your point there, Karen, a lot of the goals, the hard work's done, right? The goals and stuff have been identified. It's just
They have.
coalescing around which ones are we going to work on this year.
right.
Well,
It's been beneficial.
They've
It's been
already, the
beneficial for
town
me.
board has, excuse me, the town board's already approved our goals for this year. I mean, what more do we need? I mean, yes, COVID interrupted, but most of the things that are on that goal sheet, if you will, are things that need to be done this year. Now, if you're talking about 2022, and I think you are actually more so than 2021, yeah, we have to go through and we have to do the whole process that we did when the CIC first started 5 or 6 years ago. And we went up and we put our little dots on the things that were important and, and whatever that, because this is a new plan. And so in 2022, it's implementation of the new plan. That's.
Sorry for being so idealistic.
No, we have to be idealistic. I think that I said before that the CIC I see as an oversight board. And you know what? This is one of the issues that we see. If we have to go back and constantly, not constantly, but take into consideration and educate new board, how much responsibility does the town board need to take for that themselves?
It's been beneficial for me to serve on these different committees and stuff. So, I'm far from an expert on things, but I at least have some, knowledge that I've gained from attending the meetings of the different committees.
Yes, and we can identify those town board members who have taken their responsibility to educate themselves. So here we go.
There.
Exactly.
All right. Well, on that happy note.
Oh, gosh.
Joyce, you're 100% correct. We're working on 2021 is what it is. But what I'm saying is, as we look forward to 2022 with new town board members, we're going to have to put in a little extra effort, I think, as we approach the end of 21 to hit the ground running in 2022 with these new town board members and making sure that, we're all in agreement on what we're working on. I know that so many times it's been so helpful to be in a meeting and I can, defer to Gary, or Gary and I can talk about things that were discussed at the CIC. The CIC has provided huge help in terms of giving direction and the comprehensive plan and really holding all of us accountable and keeping it moving and the implementation of those goals. Because truthfully, and the CIC gets used as an example all the time. I can tell you, I can't even tell you how many municipalities have contacted me asking questions about the CIC and how are you implementing the comprehensive plan? Because it doesn't happen in a lot of municipalities. And that all goes back to all the hard work that's been put in by all of you and the members of the CIC over the years, and really keeping the focus on the comprehensive plan and the things that we're doing, and making sure that even the codes, the town laws, and the things that the town is doing is based on the comprehensive plan. It's critically important. And we run into situations like we just did with Tishner Point, where clearly the comprehensive plan said explore public access. I feel like we explored it. It may not have happened, but we explored it.
Exactly.
In my book, we check that box for a time period anyway.
I will agree. Yes.
So, all right, everybody. It was great seeing you all today and catching up with you. Thank you all for taking the time. And we'll chat with you in 2 weeks to talk about the comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank
Very
you,
good.
Doug.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Cheers,
bye.
everybody. See ya.
Thanks, Doug.
Go on.
Thank you.